John Wesley attended. It's now been made into a housing estate, and so outsiders cannot get in. If we could advance one more. In fact, this is a nasty kind of sign that says, "This is not a park or tourist area. The public are not allowed past this entrance. If you do, you will be trespassing." Okay, so I got the message. I did not walk past it, but if you advance the slide, well, I don't have it, but you can see just a little bit of the inside of the old quad there. Here's a few more events in John Wesley's life. He became part of the snobbiest and largest college in Oxford, Christ Church, in 1720. The rest of us from other Oxford colleges don't particularly like Christ Church, and so we always talk it down whenever we get a chance. But it's one of the prestigious schools within the Oxford University system. In 1725, he made a decision to live a more religious life, and at that point he wrote to his father and his mother and told them that he wanted to seek orders in the Church of England. He wanted to be ordained. Later that year he was ordained as a deacon in the Church of England. Now at that time a deacon, just like among Methodists up until 1996, a deacon was simply a transitional office in preparation for becoming a priest, or what we would call an elder in the United Methodist Church. Ordained deacon later that year. In the next year, 1726, Charles Wesley came to Oxford, and they began hanging around together because Charles was at Christ Church College. In the same year, John Wesley became a fellow, that means a member of the faculty, at the finest of all Oxford colleges, at Lincoln College, which also just happens to be my college. So this is kind of like University of Texas versus Oklahoma or something like that, or A&M, and so forth. The inter-college rivalry. I've been getting tweets through the last week about our rowing team at Lincoln College and how well they've been doing in the races on the river this year. In 1727, King George I died and George II came to the throne. In the same year, John Wesley went back to Epworth and served as a curate. We would say an associate pastor or an assistant pastor with his father in the little churches at Epworth and at Root, W-R-O-O-T-E, near Epworth. In 1728, he came back down to Oxford, or up to Oxford, as we always say about Oxford. And he was ordained as a priest in that year. He was ordained as a priest in Christ Church Cathedral, which is the chapel of Christ Church College in Oxford. And we have Methodist meetings at Christ Church. We're going to have one a year from now, and we always commemorate the fact that John Wesley was ordained there in the cathedral at Christ Church in Oxford. Ordained as a priest, and in 1729, John said that in that year a group of students began meeting together with him and his brother Charles, and they began studying classical literature in Latin and Greek, and then they began reading the scriptures in Greek and Hebrew, and then they began reading literature about the Christian life, and they became very, very serious about following the Christian life and methodical in their piety. Now what they believed at this time was that you're justified by faith. You've heard about this, right? But, they thought, you're not going to be justified until you do everything within your power. So you have to do good works, and you have to serve the poor, which they did, and you have to go to Holy Communion, which they did very frequently during this time. And their friends began making fun of them. They called them sacramentarians because they went to communion so often. They called them Bible moths because they were reading the Bible so often. And one of the sneering terms they used was Methodists. Methodists. It's interesting, just in recent decades, we've discovered that the term New Methodist was a term that was used to describe those people who did not accept the doctrine of predestination and believed that Christ had died for all human beings, something that John Wesley is very much going to affirm in his career as a preacher. So when somebody said, according to his remembrance, "See, here is some new sect of Methodists springing up," We think what they might have said originally was, see, here is some sect of new Methodists springing up, because the new Methodists had a new method of doing theology that was different than John Calvin's doctrine of predestination. However it came about, the term Methodist sticks, and this group comes to be called by that name, really referring to their methodical piety. If we could move the slide now. Here is a view of Oxford from Christchurch Meadow looking from the river. You can't see it much, but it's a lovely view. There's also the back end of Cow over there on the side.